All right, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about this article out of the Business Insider saying 60% of millennials earning over 100,000 say they're living paycheck to paycheck. Let's read a little bit about it. 60% of millennials raking in over 100,000 a year said they're living paycheck to paycheck, found a new survey by Payments and Lending Club, which analyzed economic data and Census Bureau surveys of over 28,000 Americans. Found 54% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and what is this? Nearly 40% of high earners, those making more than 100,000 a year, said they live that way. So that's very astounding. That again, number one, 60% of millennials making over 100,000 live paycheck to paycheck, but 40% of everyone, right? Now, let's just, I guess, go over this and then we'll. The economy is also a huge factor behind why six-figure earning millennials feel broke. As the report said, living paycheck to paycheck sometimes carries connotations of barely scraping by and of poverty. The reality of a paycheck to paycheck lifestyle in the US is that today much more complex and current economic environment has made it even more complicated. Cited an example of a college educated 35-year-old earning more than 100,000 while juggling a mortgage, student loan debt, and a child that could leave them with little savings for big purchases or unexpected emergencies. Generations are facing an affordability crisis. Income increases slightly have not kept up with an exponential increase in living costs, and the pandemic it hasn't helped matters by throwing job losses and pay cuts into the mix. The cost of education has more than doubled since the 70s. Um, yeah, the average. Okay, so apparently the average person owes 80 grand on their student loans um, from this firm, basically. Byproduct, the increasing cost of living, the middle class has been shrinking. Pew Research Center defines the U.S. middle class as people earning two-thirds to twice the median income, about 48,500 to 145,500, most recent data found. So um, this means a six-figure salary is no longer what it used to be. So again, there's a lot of important things here. I mean, the first thing that I wanted to bring up is something that I always bring up, which is something I can't stand that some people bring up. And it's this point here is that income increases have simply not kept up with an exponential increase in living costs. So whatever inevitably happens when you bring this up to a lot of people, they always bring up the, oh, well, if you look at, household incomes over the last 50 years, they've actually, you know, increased pretty consistent. Right? I think it's gone from like 30,000 to like 50,000 or whatever. There's a lot of big problems with that. And again, number one, they're going off household incomes. So again, 50, 60 years ago, majority of women didn't work. Now it's the vast majority do. So of course household incomes are going to go up. Number two, when they say adjusted for inflation, they're bring that up. They
Yeah, they have no idea what they're talking about. And I don't care if they're some economist or something. Like, if they genuinely are unaware that the CPI massively understates real inflation, like, I don't even have words for you. Like, that's like being a mathematician and not knowing 2 plus 2. Like, come on. Um, but again, the cost of living is going up a lot more than the CPI is saying, right? The CPI is intentionally designed to understate the actual inflation. But there's other things going on here too. I think that there's a lot of other things going on here too. Um, so again, these are people making over $100,000 a year. So you would think they should have no problem getting by. Well, there is some caveats to that. Number one, a lot of these people probably live in cities like San Francisco and New York, or in Canada, Toronto, Vancouver, to where $100,000 is by no means wealthy. Like you can maybe afford a run of the mill 1,500 square foot house. Like that's maybe the mortgage you'll get. Like you can get approved for. So that's the first thing to point out is that a lot of these people, yeah, they're making a lot of money compared to what the average person makes. Not a lot, but a good amount, but they're living in a place to where their cost of living is very high. So that's the first problem. I think the other problem too is the student loan debt, right? Like if you're making $100,000, but you have $100,000 worth of student loan debt or $200,000, a lot of these people have insane amounts of student loan debt.
you're not actually doing all that well, right? You'd be better off making 60, 70, for sure 80,000 in my mind, and have not have that $200,000 or $100,000 of debt, rather than be making the 100,000, right? Now, in the long run, that might be the case, might not be the case, but again, like this brings me to the other problem too, in that a lot of these people have absolutely no idea how to budget, um, or a combination of they live a lifestyle that's beyond their means, right? And that, again, how many people, like, again, if you're making $100,000 a year, most of the time, like, again, short of the people that live in a very, very costly area, but again, even if you do, like, a lot of those people don't need to be living in that area. A lot of these people are just living beyond their means, to be quite honest. And that's the problem. It's not necessarily partially all these people's fault. Like I say, you learn absolutely nothing about budgeting, about investing in school. Like, again, you learn about the stupidest garbage that you don't have there. You don't even need to. There's absolutely no reason you need to learn a lot of the stuff you're taught in school. But literally everybody would benefit from learning about budgeting, basic personal finance, investing, stuff like that. Like, the fact that we're not taught about that is absolutely and utterly asinine, right? Like, in Alberta right now, there's this big hubbub about the new education curriculum, right? I mean, anyone who's from here, you've probably heard about it. And again, the main reason that people are upset about it is not because it's actually all that bad. It's pretty much the same old, same old. But the reality of why people are upset about it is because the conservatives proposed it. If the That's the reality of why people are upset about it. If the NDP proposed something every bit as bad, none of these people would care about it. So let's just be honest about that. But um, I've heard people who are teachers, and I've heard them complain about, can you believe it's so stupid? They're teaching kids about the Black Plague from grade 8 to grade 3 or something like that. And I just laugh. Like, I just laugh. It's like, who gives a you know what whether kids learn about the Black Plague at all, for starters, but number two, when they learn about it. I've never heard any of these people complain about, yeah, kids aren't taught about any, like, personal finance, taxes, investing, budgeting, that you're not taught anything about any of that stuff that everybody would benefit from. But you're worried about when kids get taught about the Black Plague? Like, are you joking? And that's where we're at in society, is that people don't really care about this stuff. And that's the other thing too. Like, for all the people that ignore stuff like this, like, I really don't care. Like, I really don't care. Like, if you're gonna ignore reality, you deserve every negative ramification that's gonna come your way. But so basically, at the end of the day, this is a combination of things. I think it's a combination of, a lot of these people probably are living beyond their means. I'd say it's probably like a 50-50 spread if I had to guess. Probably about half of them they're just living beyond their means, right? And a lot of them probably are just living, again, they have a combination of, they're living in a costly area, right? You're living in New York, San Francisco, you have student loan debt, right? And again, a lot of these people have kids too. That's the other thing too. You have a lot of young people that have kids. Again, it's the millennials and the young generation. It's very funny how, again, their way of doing things is, I'm gonna wait till I'm like, mid 30s, late 30s, even 40s to have kids, or I'm gonna do it when I'm like 20. Like, it's very funny how that works these days. Like, again, and the problem at the end of the day is, again, a lot of these people, again, they have no idea what they're doing when it comes to this stuff, because you're not taught about any of it. Like, why aren't we teaching people about this stuff? And there's two possible answers in my mind. One, the people deciding what needs to be taught are so incredibly incompetent it's not even funny. Or two, the goal is to keep people down. One of those two scenarios must be true. And I think that um, the everyday teacher, again, they just don't really know what they're talking about. They're pretty uneducated. I mean, they know how to do math or science or physics or whatever it is, but at the end of the day, when it comes to just general smarts, they're not very intelligent. At least when it comes to stuff like this, right? Again, they can do their physics, they can do their biology and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, like, again, if you understand a lot about physics or biology or math or stuff like that, but you don't know that, it's probably a good idea to put away a percentage of my paycheck every time. So, just for obvious reasons, right? You should be saving for, if you don't have a house, save for a house. If you don't care about a house, you still should have savings. What happens if you hurt yourself and you need to tap into savings? Again, there's so many scenarios that could come up. Like, again, like anybody anybody who's making enough money, which is the vast majority of people, who isn't putting, even if it's like $50 a month, $100 a month. This is the other big mistake people make, is they think that you have to be putting massive amounts of money away. Like, no, you really don't. You really don't. And it's easier than ever too. Like, this is the other excuse I think people might make too, is, oh, what do I do? It's so hard. Like, no, it isn't. Like, you download an app, find a basic run-of-the-mill index fund, and you're good to go. I mean, that's probably being a little oversimplified. That's not what I would do, but if you want to keep it simple, do that, right? If you don't want to be overly risky, put some of your money in bonds. I think that that's stupid, but some people like that. So again, it's really not all that hard. Again, if you want to keep it as simple as humanly possible, you find a basic index fund like a VOO or VFV or VIG. One of those is all of those are good. And if you want to put some in bonds, you find an VAG, I think is the aggregate bond fund. You're good to go. You can do, if you want to do 50-50, 60-40, you can do whatever you want, right? You can even put money in a TFSA or whatever the U.S. equivalent is. I think it's a Roth IRA. I don't know exactly which one it is, but the one that's tax free. Boom, you're good to go. It's so, you don't have to worry about taxes. You can take it out whenever you want. So simple, it's not even funny. And again, these are people with college degrees, and again, this is the craziest thing too, is that not only do they not teach you this stuff in high school or in junior high, they don't even teach it to you in college. Like, it just, the insanity is not even funny when it comes to this stuff. Now again, if you take finance or something like business, yeah, you'll probably learn about it, but like, again, like most courses the first year, you take some general stuff. Why is that not something that, and this would be so easy to teach, it's not even funny too. Like, I don't get it. Like, I really don't get it. And at the end of the day, I think if you're talking about the people at the top, I think the goal is to keep people ignorant and to keep people down. Because I refuse to believe that there's that many incompetent people out there. It's possible, but I don't believe it. Right? So I think at the end of the day, the goal is to keep people down, right? As bad as that sounds, right? Now, again, for all the people saying, oh, why would they want to do that? Well, again, that's a different story for a different day. But if you're going to question that, you really need to be adopting these people are incompetent camp. And they're probably not going to do that, right? So anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you haven't already, make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms. Again, if you want to donate, you can do that as well. Again, I would very much appreciate whatever support I can get. But like I say, check out those links and stay tuned for more.